Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. Amelia's just sent me a message. She's going crazy over this house, right? She sent me a picture with some beach guide, and she's like, near the house, exclamation mark. Looks like a Caribbean beach. It does, to be fair. But yeah, she's super excited, which is nice. Cute.
I so think it was the right decision for you guys. As you know, I've gone back and forth. Just felt way too heavy to me.
Yeah, it was.
Uncle Doug always knows best.
Yeah. Let's ask Erin.
Always a smart move. So last night, Tim, I decided to come down here to what I call the command center, which is essentially my office space / man cave. The other part of this I'm still building out, and just wanted some chill time and decided to throw on a movie. And I'm involved in this anyway. I got access to this this library of movies that a former employee has, and years ago, but he still updates it, and you can sort them by ranking. So by Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb rankings to see what's there. So you're going through and you got the usual suspects, no pun intended, because The Usual Suspects is one of my favorite movies, and that's up there, ranking high, et cetera, and the movies you'd expect to see. And all of a sudden I'm scrolling through and there's The Red Pill. I'm like, huh?
Okay.
And I'm familiar with what The Red Pill is, and and I'll describe that in the dating and marriage scene, right? And I'll describe a little bit about that. But it was a documentary. And what struck me as interesting, so originally I was going to skip over it, but it had such high ratings. I'm like, that's interesting. What we do for work, et cetera, and helping the guys, and just being a guy trying to find a solution myself, I stumbled across the concept of the red pill. And again, I'll describe that a little bit for the listeners. And what I thought was really interesting is the documentary was made by a feminist. And I thought, ooh, this is all going to be about taking down guys. And the ratings were high. I was like, and I had this almost like that situation where you have two voices. One's going, let's check this out. The other one's going, dude, this is going to be so horrible. Don't waste your time.
And did you say you've not seen it before?
I had not seen it before that.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So you've seen it?
Yeah.
I thought this was this huge discovery I found, right?
Yeah.
Franco, who does enrollment, graduate of the activation method and the Alpha Reset and the Brotherhood. He's seen it. So maybe I'm the only person. So and I'm glad you've seen it as well. So I'm watching this documentary. I'm like, holy cow. This is so interesting how these concepts have come up and what this woman's journey was going through. And I thought, how prolific would something like this be? Obviously us doing a documentary, but more likely I immediately sent a text message to several women that I know and said, you need to watch this within this week. I was like, this is a must for you. This is a must put on your your calendar. Because these women are raising young men, right? They're raising boys to be men. So I thought this was extremely, extremely important. And one of these women is reading a book right now on patriarchy and how the patriarchy of society has suppressed women and is taking over, and how it's time for a matriarchy, and how when it was women running the show, things were so much better in the past. And when men took over, that's when all this bad stuff happened. And so, I knew that this person was reading that book. And I just, all right, whatever, I haven't read it. So maybe there's validity to it. No need to get into it. But I thought this documentary was really fascinating. And you look at some of the stats they threw up there, the percentage of men that die in war, the percentage of men that go to war, right? And, they had some quotes from, political leaders. Would you send more women to war? What happens if things are truly equal? And I don't want to get into a debate whether men or women are equal and all of that, because that's not the point. The point is looking at us differently, right? I love women. I value women. There's no doubt about that. But I also love and value men, right? Equally. And so I think you get to be in the conversation if you're saying women, right? Women are different, then men are different, right? So you stay in that same conversation here. So what the red pill is, the idea behind it for anybody that hasn't seen it, right, is the idea, it's kind of like the Matrix, where Neo goes up to Morpheus and which pill do you want to take, the red or the blue pill? And so in this kind of, what they call the manosphere, which I hate that name, but is going on is the guys that are in the blue pill are guys that are in a relationship that they don't want to be. They're a nice guy. They're a people pleaser. They bought into that story, which I did too, right? Back in the day, you buy into that story where the relationship's not working. I'll just be nicer, right? I'll just listen. Oh, my wife's complaining about the trash or the bins not being taken out. So I'll just take out the trash more. I'll do the dishes more. I'll do all these things to make her happy. Then we'll have this amazing life, right? I'll put her needs ahead of mine. Then we'll have this amazing life. Then some guys take the red pill, which is a pill that you and I swallowed a long time ago, right? The red pill is really about waking up. It's coming out of unplugging from the matrix and looking at things very differently. And not from a misogynistic standpoint, but from the standpoint of you're a human, you have needs. And when you take care of yourself, use the Triad of Connection as an example, which is one of the methodologies that we teach. We have a workshop coming up on the Triad of Connection, actually. And when you use those kinds of things, really you're in your power, right? As a man, your business runs better, but also you allow your wife, your spouse, and the people around, your women around you to fall into their femininity, which is really where they want to be naturally, right? Bell-shaped curve, right? There's some women that aren't as feminine. There's some men that are more feminine than others, et cetera. But you get the idea. And so it's the red pill versus the blue pill. So I found this documentary. I'd love to hear what you thought about it, Tim. I'm guessing you watched it many years ago, but what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I watched it this year, in fact, and I watched it off the back of a recommendation from a friend of mine, a very good friend who is slightly older than you and I. I think he's in his mid-60s. But him and I have some fascinating conversations about masculinity and what it means to be a man. And he's very knowledgeable on the archetypes, and he has certain beliefs about how a lot of men in today's society are being emasculated. And he recommended that I watch this. And I just brought it up on Google because I wanted to jog my memory. And it says here, some of the issues discussed as facing men and boys are male suicide rates, workplace fatalities and high-risk jobs, military conscription, a lack of services for male victims of domestic violence and rape, higher rates of violent victimization, issues concerning divorce and child custody. That's just ridiculous. Disparity in criminal sentences, disproportionately less funding and research on men's health issues, educational inequality, societal tolerance of misandry, male genital mutilation. I'll read them all out. Point being is, there's just to give the listeners some context in case they've not, watched the documentary. It's fascinating. So, do you know what? It triggers me, this. It really does. I try my best to remain neutral and calm. But the whole idea of toxic masculinity and just how men are the root of a lot of problems just really pisses me off, quite frankly.
Me too. Yeah.
And that isn't anything against anybody. I just think it's bullshit, quite frankly. I think it's just human nature. I think there's good and bad wherever you look in whatever gender. It just is what it is, right? There's swings and roundabouts with it all. And the idea, Amelia, right? This is fascinating. So Amelia, she went to go and buy her best friend, her son. This was about a year ago. She went to go buy him a birthday present. And it was about, I think it was 2, or it was young anyway. And she came back and she's like, Tim, well, I asked her, in fact, I said, what did you get him? And she's like, I got him this toy soldier. I'm like, okay. And she's like, look, all the toys there for the boys were just all about fighting. Toy soldiers, or war this, or war that, or whatever. There was some little construction things. But for the most part, and this may have just been this store, I don't know. But the point I'm making here with this is, if you look at guys and what they're exposed to from a young age, and how society sometimes views or treats them, is it any surprise that, the shootings in schools or wherever it is, mostly, if not all, are committed by men? Is it really any surprise? Male suicide rate. So, point I'm making is I don't think it solves the problem to create a divide between men and women and start saying, right, we need a new system. It needs to be a matriarch instead of a patriarch. And I don't. I think it creates more of the same issues. I think it's the same level of thinking that is kind of got us into some of the problems in the first place. Friends of mine, they've gone through, very good friends of mine, custody battles to win rights just to see the kids. Awesome fathers, fathers that want to father, fathers that are own businesses, great guys, care about the kids, want to be there.
Yeah.
Yet the kids are being used as pawns almost, as a way to get back at the guy because he doesn't want to be with the mother for whatever reason. That's their situation. It's not anything to do with the kids, right? And typically the system in the UK, the way it works, fathers don't really stand a chance for the most part. The mothers can take the kids away for a year or however long, 2 years, and they don't have to let the fathers see them. Their fathers then have to fight just to see. It's crazy. So swings and roundabouts is my point. And I think this was that woman's realization in creating the red pill, right? She had this one way of thinking and realized, oh my God, how wrong was I? There's this whole other side to this argument or this philosophy that I was never aware of.
So where I think, I think men and women are just fundamentally different. Like, we're different creatures. And I think this whole notion that we're equal in a lot of things, right? Like, in other words, we're equal I love the idea of us being equal in opportunity, right? I think it's foolhardy to think that we're equal in everything, because we're not. There's things that women are better than men are. There's things that men are naturally better than women, right? You take the average man and the average woman, and you're going to make some assumptions, right? The guy is going to be stronger, got more testosterone, bone density, muscle mass, etc. You're just going to make that. Which one do you give to a crying child, right? The male, just there's certain things that you just make assumptions with. Now, again, you're making assumptions, or I am anyway. I'm making assumptions, and that could be false. But I think it's stupid, in my opinion, to consider men and women as the same. There's no other species in the animal kingdom that we list as the same.
Exactly.
We differentiate between male and female gender, right? I know gender is something we're not supposed to talk about anymore. Do you know in California, the state of California, they are taking out manholes, manhole covers, these are the street cut things, because it says man on them, and they're taking out of the civic code man-made. So they no longer will have.
It's just ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. And this gender idea, I got a buddy. Well, this is a guy who's in the Brotherhood that lives near me. Anyway, he's got a situation where he's involved, and there's a child, a child. It's a girl. I want to say 7 years old or so, and she's confused about her gender identity. Right? She's only 7 years old. Way too early to start thinking about those things, I would imagine. Right? She wants to be gender neutral. Right? And look, I feel so compassionately for people who feel stuck, right? They feel like they're a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body. I feel compassion, but I can't imagine what that would be like. Right? I don't get it. And I feel for them. That must be horrible, right? To have to go through something like that. But this is forced on our society in such an amazing way, and amazing not being a good one, but it amazes me. I see you stepping back and forth over there because I get triggered by this too. Is you look at these arguments that are being made for men, and we have so many guys that come through the program. They're successful business leaders. They're good friggin' guys. you go get a beer with them, right? They're good guys. They're doing the right thing. They're trying to do the right thing by their wives.
Don't stereotype the guys and say they all want a beer.
I just want a beer with them. They want, they're trying to do the right thing by their families, the right thing by themselves. And they're stuck in this horrible, horrible spin that society's putting on them. And it's almost like society is dumping this blue pill potion down their throat. And, when guys come through our program and they start just making small tweaks and going, holy shit, like things are all changing for me, right? They're making these shifts because they're taking care of themselves. They're opening their eyes. They're getting unplugged from the matrix. And, every guy says the same thing. I wish I would have done this earlier. Every single guy. Because you're getting awoken to this, right? It's like me watching this documentary, right? I went right onto Slack and I sent it to our whole team. You've got to watch this. I bought it. I will buy it for you. Like, I was so adamant. Like, you guys just have to see this because this is going to help you understand what a lot of these guys that we're working with are going through.
Yeah, it's great. Look, it's not, but again, the two things. One, I don't know. In my opinion, society and the way that the world is governed by certain people is very unhealthy. And I don't think that's a gender thing. I think it's more an agenda thing. Whatever the agenda is, the reality is if you want to control a population, you got to divide them. And they're dividing them through race, through gender, through religion, through age, through all sorts, right? And that's my belief anyway. And that's what you see. And, even us, we're talking about it now. So even we're sucked into it, right? And the reality is it's none of those things. It's not a problem with men. It's not a problem with women. It's the individual. No. And the moment you start believing the problem is outside of you, you've lost.
100%.
You've completely lost. It's not the moment you feel like you've got to exert an agenda, your agenda on somebody else. Well, where's that coming from? That's coming from fear. That's coming from insecurity. That's coming from the fact that you firmly, because the reality is, right, when you focus on yourself and when you do the work on yourself to unplug and to deepen your roots and your connection to yourself and to the greater thing at large, whatever that is, call it God, call it spirituality, whatever. There's something bigger, it's undeniable, in my opinion, whatever you want to call it. And when you do the work on yourself to tune more into that and more into yourself, you realize that competition isn't something to be feared or even something that can affect you because you learn to tune in and lean into your own path. And as a result, you get so much joy from being on your own path that you can celebrate the opinion and the path of others without feeling a need to get sucked in and defend or retaliate or whatever. It's just the reason why I think it triggers me so much is because it's like, pull your head out your ass. It's the exact same thinking that is causing the problem that you're then displaying to try and change the problem. It's the same thing. And some people don't see it and think it's different because it's hidden under an agenda that might seem reasonable or positive to them. But it's still the same kind of hate to a degree that has been unhealthy throughout history. We all look up to and revere people like Gandhi and Mandela. Why is that? Because we see something in them that we know to be true and that we seek within ourselves. And there was no judgment there. Yeah, Mandela, before he went into prison, there were things he did. But point being is that when he came out and he united a nation, do you think that he united a nation by having a lens of you're wrong, I'm right? No, he didn't. So, yeah, it triggers me.
It does me too, man. I was fired up last night, and one of the things that fires me up about this, and this is not the angle I wanted to take in this conversation at all, is really just to describe for the guys what red pill theory is really, but we'll come back to that on another podcast. There was a woman that was in there, and I'll talk about why this fired. She called herself Big Red. And so there was a guy going to listen to a talk, and she starts screaming and yelling at this guy. And I might be getting scenes mixed up, but I'll get the general idea. And screaming and yelling at this guy, and this guy goes, you're a woman hater. You're the problem. You're a white male. And the guy's like, I'm just here to hear a different opinion. I listen to a variety of opinions. I haven't formed my own opinion on the subject yet. And she's just yelling and screaming, right? And her arguments are horrible, but she's yelling so loud, and she's in people's faces, and people are around her, like cheering her on. And then the interviewer, this woman who is a self-proclaimed feminist, interviews her and goes, "Oh, how long you've been involved in feminism, the women's rights and feminism?" She's like, "Well, I'm new to it. I'm just really loud." That was her response, and proud of it.
I remember her, yeah.
Proud of it, right? And I'm just like, oh my God. I posted something on social media the other day, and because we're running this Facebook group, I'm on social media a lot more trying to help the guys just go through it. I can't even remember what I posted, but a woman that's a friend of mine, social media friend, comes in and leaves an explanation, right? Something that she didn't like about, I remember the post. It was something that she didn't like the post. It was like a dangerous man, et cetera. But, and then a guy responds to her and says, "Well, I don't think that's what the picture's really depicting. What really it's talking about is making sure you can defend your family, et cetera." She comes back, goes, "I didn't need you to mansplain me what was going on here." I was just like, delete, unfriend. I don't have time for you in my world.
Wow.
Like I love debate. I love people who have different opinions than I do. Right. I absolutely love it. When they can have an intellectual conversation with me about it, change my mind. Awesome. Right. That's great. Let's have a dialogue. But when people come back with just this hate speech, which is what it is, it's hate for men. I just will put my foot down. It's just like, I wouldn't let someone put a racist comment on there. Like, "Don't tell me that because you're black, you can't tell me anything." I'm like, what? Like, it's the same thing. Right. So just delete, unfriend. I don't have time in my world for you. When we did this, I was a host of this virtual summit that you were involved in. And Tim, by the way, you had the most views on your videos, your presentation. You did an amazing presentation on the 5 agonies of men. And guys, you should find that because Tim does a great job. Ask Tim for it. Just hit him a DM on social media. He'll get it to you. But it's an amazing presentation. But Tim, one thing you probably didn't know, I'm the host of this, so I see all the comments. So there were equally in numbers, probably, well, maybe not equal, but close to men and women that were invited to present, right? Yourself, there's Tony Robbins, Dr. Michael Beckwith, Jack Canfield, Her Holiness Sai Ma, Doreen Spence. So a lot of people. And we got a lot of hate messages because there weren't enough women headlining. And there was never a question of like, "Hey, why aren't there more women?" Then they could explain, well, more men responded numbers wise. We have 13 women presenting, which is a good number of women presenting. But, the reason is women didn't. And one woman came back to me and she said, "Well, you should have this person on." And she was mad. She was angry and upset. And it wasn't directed to me. It was directed to the organization. And I simply came back and said, "That's awesome. I'm the host. Why don't you give me that person's cell phone number? I'll call them right now." And she's like, "Well, I don't have their contact information." Well, then how do you expect me to call them? Like, you're blaming me, the organization, people involved in this for hating on women. That's not the case. We invited.
Do you know what as well, right?
People should watch this on the video to see how much you and I are moving back and forth and how animated this conversation.
I'm sat here wondering, and I wonder whether maybe part of this is like suppression, right? For maybe decades, maybe women have been feeling this way. Cool, get it, right? It's all fine. And the reality is, in my experience, and this is for anyone, regardless of age, gender, sex. Well, age to a degree, because if you're too young, then that's kind of okay. But point being is, if you have been a victim in your own life, then you are going to find a way to jump on something to have a go at other people. That's just the reality. You want an outlet for that anger and that frustration. And the reality is, oftentimes, that anger and that frustration is at yourself. You might disguise it in a feminine message or a racist message or whatever it is. But 9 times out of 10, in order for you to feel that, not to come out of your mouth, that has first got to exist within you. And the only way that will exist within you is if you allow it to exist within you by being a victim. Whereas when you choose through the work on yourself to lean in to your own stories and beliefs and insecurities, which, we all have them, it's fine, and do the work to release that, guess what happens? That anger starts to transmute into other emotions, be it peace or love or joy or whatever. Back to Mandela. The reason why he was able to unite a nation was he was able to do that through love, through peace. Gandhi, the famous picture, sat on the floor in front of, it might have been the Dalai Lama, it was somebody, sat on the floor refusing against the soldiers, refusing to use physical violence as a way to protest. And he does that famous saying, if I'm going to butcher it, so I won't repeat it word for word. But essentially what it said was the fact that if I'm going to go and use physical violence to protest my point, then I'm just the same as them.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, right? It's kind of like a kid who has a tantrum. As an adult, do you then have a tantrum back to get your point across? You know what I mean? So
I agree 100%. 100%. Equality is equality. I'm cool with equality, but it's got to be equal, right? Well, no, but not in that sense, Tim. We don't want equal rights there. We want equal rights everywhere else. One of the other crazy stats that came off of this was, and I've heard this a million times, and it was something like 1 out of and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but you guys will get it. 1 out of 3 women is a victim of sexual assault. I've heard that so many times. I repeat it. I talk to the women that work for us about it. Like, hey, let's, this is a stat. Talk to the men. Got to protect the women, right? Got to protect the women. Women off the ship first and plane first. You got to protect them. But then they said, this woman shows a stat that was like, well, people don't talk about it. So 1 out of every 4 men are a victim of a sexual assault.
Wow.
I never friggin' heard that before. That's not talked about. It'd be molestation, rape, whatever it may be. It's never talked about, right? And we've had grown men come through the program who have sat down and things have come out through processes where they're like, hey, I've been sexually abused, as a child, as a young boy.
I've had tons of guys that's happened to.
But it's never talked about.
That's the first time that they've shared it as well.
First time they share, yeah, because it's a safe space with the men that we work with, right? Because I was trying to describe the men that we work with to a guy that I was talking on the phone with yesterday. And I was like, these are real men. These aren't, these are guys that own construction companies in New York, these are real guys, right? These are men. These aren't, these guys aren't just people who are hurt. They're not victims at all. These are real solid dudes who have stepped into their light. And so some of the stats that were going through there, like 99% of deaths, I think you said this earlier, but high risk jobs, like people who are working on telephone lines, electricians, like 99% of those deaths and injuries are all men. 99%. Right? It's absolutely insane. And you look at suicide rates, you look at jails, all kinds of things, right? And anyway, we're going to go on, and we don't have the stats in front of us, which would make it more powerful to be able to throw out there. Guys, I highly recommend, if you haven't seen the documentary, if you're on Amazon, you can get it for free on Amazon with ads, at least here in the States. I checked before. I'd probably send it to you, but it's worth checking out, in my opinion, if you've never been exposed to this type of material before, because it's mind-blowing. It really is. And it's a conversation that we have with the men within the movement often. And almost every guy that comes through the program wants to give back to other guys. We had a guy just talk about wanting to put a scholarship in place for other men. And it's because it's changed their lives so much. And it's waking up. It's taking the red pill, Morpheus. I'm unplugged. Shit. You can't unsee it. You cannot unsee it when you're unplugged. And that's why you and I get so fired up about it, because we see so many guys walking around like zombies, right? And what's even worse are the guys that have kind of woken up but haven't taken action. That drives me friggin' nuts. That are sitting on the fence. Oh, that drives me nuts. I love you guys. I've been there. I get it. It drives me nuts because you know better, right? You got to take action, guys, and just pull that friggin' trigger.
It's wasted potential. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you actually knew what you were capable of, man, how the world would be different, right? If people actually knew what they were capable of in a healthy way. I think so many more people would actually take action and take the risk to be seen and to be heard. We'd have a completely different world. But I just want to be clear on something. Look, I'm not getting triggered. I think I get as triggered about this, regardless of what angle it comes from, right? I think the thing that triggers me is the fact that by disguising or coming up with this angle of, be it feminism or race or whatever, just completely missing the real problem.
Yep.
And people get so fired up thinking that they're doing a good thing, yet they're creating more of the same problem, more of the same hate, more of the same division, more of the same. And it's just not necessary. And my bet is if you actually chose to do the work on yourself, that lens would change. Be a lot more appreciative and respectful of other people's opinions, suicide rates, everything. I mean, the world would just be a completely different place.
Yeah, completely different. Well, like the baskets, I can go on and on about this subject for a very, very long time. Gentlemen, thank you for listening to us rant and rave. I hope you guys got something about this, but continue the conversation. It's an important conversation. We often talk about the powerful man. It's a movement, right? We support, endorse all kinds of other men's programs out there, right? Nothing against them at all. We want you guys to go do something. If you don't do our program, go do another program, right? Get off the treadmill of this rat race, right? Where you're taking this blue pill and you're missing out, man. And we just don't want that. Go do something else. If you don't do, either one of our workshops or the activation method, obviously we're biased in the sense that we think it's the best, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. We'd go work with the other organizations. A lot of the coaches that we have jumped ship from another organization to come over here because it's a movement. And what we're doing is something big, and that something big involves you. And so I'd love for you guys to take advantage of that, whatever that looks like. But either way, do something. just please do something. You deserve it. Your kids deserve it. The world deserves you at the highest level. So, gentlemen, that's a wrap for us here at the Powerful Man Show. If you can, take a moment just to give us a rating so other men like you can find us, right? These are conversations that aren't had very often, especially with us business leaders coming through. We don't talk about these subjects as openly, right? A lot of guys have reached out saying, I want to share the podcast, but I just don't know how to share this with, people that are business leaders as well, and we get it. And we're going to put a couple more podcasts out there that are a little bit more shareable, that'll make it a little easier to open up the conversation. But this is a conversation, right? This whole idea about the red pill and how men are treated or not treated versus women. And again, this is nothing against women at all. At all. Every man that comes to our program love women, or they wouldn't be in the program, right? It's not what we're about. We are about love for all. And that's not the point. The point is just helping men out. And that's what we're doing. So guys, have an amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Powerful Man Show.